Kerala, I have to say, is one of the most phenomenal places on earth. In this very crowded piece of territory where you have Hindus, Muslims, and Christians, substantial communities of each living side by side, that since Indian independence, the people live in peace. And there are several reasons, some economic, some cultural, and some unique, that explain it. These three major religious communities have a long history there, and that the Arabs and Christians came not as conquerors, but as merchants in 1,000 years ago. And so they've lived together for a long time. They've learned a common language, and they also celebrate each other's religious holidays, as we found.
India, and that country remains in lockdown after the latest extension was approved on Sunday. The country went into lockdown on the 24th of March, and schools, public transport and most businesses have been shut since. The world's largest lockdown, covering 1.3 billion people, appears to have helped keep India's numbers relatively low, with a little over 3,000 deaths and around 96,500 confirmed cases.
But then you have something unique in Kerala, and that is that you have a communist party that chose the electoral path, unlike communist parties elsewhere.
In the southern state of Kerala, which has a population of 35 million, just 601 cases have been confirmed and only 4 deaths. Of course, the actual number of cases may be higher, but the state's health minister, KK Shailaja, has been praised for her ministry's rapid response to the outbreak. Well, KK Shailaja joins us now from Kerala's capital. Thanks very much for joining us here, KK Shailaja. A lot of people are asking questions about why it's been such a success story where you are in terms of keeping the numbers low.
So we can have tools, but those tools need to be put into an overall global health system, and we need preparedness. The best lessons, I think, on how to get prepared are, again, what we do for war. For soldiers, we have full-time waiting to go. We have reserves that can scale us up to large numbers. NATO has a mobile unit that can deploy very rapidly. NATO does a lot of war games to check, are people well trained? Do they understand about fuel and logistics and the same radio frequencies? So they are absolutely ready to go.
Yes, it is because of our proper timely preparation and setting our protocols and guidelines in proper time. When we heard that newly formed virus, coronavirus or COVID is spreading in Wuhan, China, in the family of SARS virus, at the time we started our preparation here in Kerala.
Let's jump straight into the first question that everybody would want me to ask. You delivered a TED Talk where you predicted pretty much what is happening now. Now, thanks to the world we live in, that has sprouted a bunch of conspiracy theories, everything from Bill Gates invented this virus to prove himself right, or he knew it was going to happen and that's why he said it. Was that TED Talk about this virus, or was that a hypothetical that has now come true?
Well, I didn't know specifically that it'd be coronavirus and that it would hit in late 2019, but the goal of the talk was to encourage governments to make the investments so we could respond very quickly and keep the case numbers very, very low. And so sadly, this is not a case where, I feel like, hey, I told you so.
Can you tell me how you actually made your preparations? So what did you do? Did you impose a lockdown before the rest of the country?
Yes, we for setting a lockdown or declaring a lockdown, we started our preparation of the health department. At once we have our RRT meeting and we opened our control room. At that time, no one returned from Wuhan, but we expect that someone will return because there are so many students studying in Wuhan University in China, and definitely we can expect that someone will return to Kerala.
We didn't use that time when it was clear as the biggest threat to kill millions of people to have the diagnostic standing by, to be ready to ramp up a vaccine factory. A few things were done. Some countries Our foundation funded some work that will help with the vaccines now, will help with the diagnostics, but most of what was called for, particularly in a New England Journal of Medicine article I did that went into way more specifics than I could in a short TED Talk, those things didn't get done, and so that's why it's taking us a long time to get our act together faced with this threat.
That time we
How are you? I
opened
mean,
our-
in a state and a place where there's 35 million people, are you testing people regularly so you know of the numbers? How are you knowing so accurately these numbers that you have?
So those are the kinds of things we need to deal with an epidemic. What are the key pieces? First is we need strong health systems in poor countries. That's where mothers can give birth safely, kids can get all their vaccines, but also where we'll see the outbreak very early on.
Yes, we have formed a scientific strategy for testing. We are tracing the people from the airport itself, and if they are coming by road, by the checkpost itself, and if they are coming by water from the seaport itself, we are tracing the people. Very good trained team was there, and they are examining the people whether they have any symptoms of coronavirus, and if they have some symptoms directly from there, we are lifting the patients to the hospital and isolating them and taking the throat swab and sending the samples for a PCR test in the laboratory. And
At
if
present,
they are-
you just have 4 deaths.
Let's look at the progression of Ebola over this year. About 10,000 people died, and nearly all were in the 3 West African countries. There's 3 reasons why it didn't spread more. The first is there was a lot of heroic work by the health workers. They found the people and they prevented more infections. The second is the nature of the virus. Ebola does not spread through the air. And by the time you're contagious, most people are so sick that they're bedridden. Third, it didn't get into many urban areas, and that was just luck. If it had gotten into a lot more urban areas, the case numbers would have been much larger.
So at present, you only have 4 deaths.
Yes, we have in our state's calculation it is 3, because one is from Goa, the Union Territory, and he came for treatment in Kerala because there is no sufficient hospitals in Union Territory, Goa, and he died in our hospital. But from Kerala we have only 3 deaths, and central government is adding that one Goa death also in our account. There is no problem. He came for treatment. He got the virus infection from Union Territory, and he came for treatment in Kerala.
Do your
And if we add
hospitals,
that,
do your hospitals have the equipment that's needed, and do your health workers have the protective gear that's needed?
So next time we might not be so lucky. You can have a virus where people feel well enough while they're infectious that they get on a plane or they go to a market. The source of the virus could be a natural epidemic like Ebola, or it could be bioterrorism. And so there are things that would literally make things 1,000 times worse.
yes, we are listening to the needs of health previously, because we are improving our hospitals, and we have a very good project called Ardram, a mission, and through which the last 4 years we are trying very hard to address the problems in local level itself. We are converting our primary health centers to family health center, providing sufficient doctors and paramedical staffs and nurses there, and we started very good laboratories in primary health center itself.
Are you
and
worried?
we are addressing
Are you worried because there are some places in India where the lockdown has started to ease? For example, in Delhi, the rail system is operating again, so people can go back to their hometowns. Are you worried that as people start to move, it could spread to a place like Kerala?
Now, out of all the places that do better than the US in reading, how many of them have a formal system for helping teachers improve. 11 out of 14. The US is tied for 15th in reading, but we're 23rd in science and 31st in math. So there's really only one area where we're near the top, and that's in failing to give our teachers the help they need to develop their skills. Let's look at the best academic performer, the province of Shanghai, China. Now they rank #1 across the board in reading, math, and science. And one of the keys to Shanghai's incredible success is the way they help teachers keep improving. They make sure that younger teachers get a chance to watch master teachers at work. They have weekly study groups where teachers get together and talk about what's working. They even require each teacher to observe and give feedback to their colleagues. You might ask, why is a system like this so important? It's because there's so much variation in the teaching profession. Some teachers are far more effective than others. In fact, there are teachers throughout the country who are helping their students make extraordinary gains. If today's average teacher could become as good as those teachers, our students would be blowing away the rest of the world. So we need a system that helps all our teachers be as good as the best. What would that system look like?
Yes, so many people are returning from the Gulf countries and all other countries to Kerala because a good number of Keralites are residing outside. We have a very good human resource import from Kerala to the other part of the world, and they are returning to their home state. And we are little much buried because a large number of people are returning at a time, but we are not hesitating. We are ready to receive them and to send them in home quarantine, and with the help of the local self-government and police and health workers, we are watching whether they are following our advisories and guidelines
and your advice. KK Shailaja, thank you very much for joining us.
Here's a question I have. As an individual, how is it that you as a non-government knew this information and knew that it needed to be acted on, and governments and organizations that are specifically tasked with protecting people from this very thing either didn't have the information or ignored it? What do you think happened there? Because I know you interact with governments, you talk to organizations like the CDC, like the WHO. What went wrong?